In the last module, we're going to be talking about giving and taking critique in general, and then specific to giving feedback on video productions. First, try to think of critiques as a tool. It's not just a way for someone to either compliment or insult your work. That's not really what it is. Giving and taking critiques and feedback can help you grow as a creative person, both in your creativity, but also in workplaces and jobs. Both giving and taking feedback will help you improve your own work. Let's start with getting critique, receiving feedback. And since we're going to talk about this, let's talk about what it is not. It is not something that should be an absolute judgment of your entire piece of work, so your entire video. That's not really what getting a good critique or feedback is. It's not a judgment for the purposes of getting a recommendation for a job or maybe an award. It is unlike what you would see a movie critic do. A movie critic is looking at the entire piece, and that's not what we're talking about here when we're talking about getting critiques. This is about getting feedback. What it is really something you should be asking for. How can I make my work better? What are the strengths and weaknesses of my video, and how can those be improved, right? So when you're getting these, you're going to get both positive and negative comments about your work. Doesn't matter. It's not about you. It's about making your video better. So don't take them personally. Don't take those negative comments personally, or even the positive ones, really. Now, when you're getting critiqued, you're getting feedback, there's some things you need to think about along the way. The biggest is don't argue against a critique. If someone says they don't like something for a particular reason, you don't need to try to convince them that the way you saw it was right. They might be looking at it from a different viewpoint that you haven't thought about. And your message that you think is coming across is not coming across the way you think that it is. So don't argue against a critique. You might provide some information, but it is not there as something that you need to defend. Instead of doing that, ask how it could be better. Like, you see an issue here, how would I do that in a different way that would work better? You need to, as you're getting this feedback, be open to new ideas. The person giving you feedback may come up with a great idea, and you might, smack yourself on the head and say, "Oh, I did not think of that. That's a great idea." Then after you get this feedback, it's always a good idea to rewatch your video with an objective eye. And that just means, objectivity means that you're not looking at it from really your point of view. You're trying to look at it from a bigger point of view to see anything that might not be working. It's really hard sometimes when you're working really closely on a video and you've been editing for hours and hours and days. Sometimes you lose sight of the bigger picture. So after you get feedback, it's always a good idea to rewatch it, and you might say, "Oh yeah, that's not what I thought I did. That's not coming across the way I thought it would come across." You do not have to agree with the feedback that you get. It's okay. The critic may not understand what your goals were. They may not understand what your message is. That's okay. After considering their advice carefully, after you've rewatched their video and thought about the things that the person giving you feedback has said, you might say, no, this is really what I wanted it to be. This is the correct way for me. Doesn't mean that, if somebody else would do it completely different. It's okay, as long as you've thought about it and really considered the situation, and yes, this is definitely the way I wanted it to be. That's okay too. Now we're going to shift to giving feedback. This is a great quote by Bill Gates. We all need people who give us feedback. That's how we improve. So those people giving feedback have a big job to do. One of the first things you need to remember about giving feedback is there is a need for it to be worth it. The feedback has to be worth giving and receiving. When you receive comments, and I'm sure you've all received comments like this over the years about your work, people say, I liked it a lot, or it was really good. That's not very helpful. It feels nice when people say that, but it doesn't really help you improve your work. That's what we want to focus on. Just like we say when you're getting feedback to not take it personally, when you're giving feedback, you should also not make it personal, not get personal. One way to do that is to avoid the word you. So instead of saying something like, you made the pacing in this part too slow, you would say something like, the pacing in this part seems slow. That takes the focus away from the person. You're not critiquing the person, and puts the focus on the video. You're critiquing and giving feedback on the video, not the person. There are several methods for giving feedback. One of the ones that we have talked about for years is the positivity sandwich, where you first start with a piece of positive commenting, and then you give them the little negative comment that you really want to tell them, and then you give them another piece of positive feedback. This is good if you don't want to hurt people's feelings. I kind of look at it as like when we were kids and we played soccer or baseball or whatever. It didn't matter if we won one game or every game of the season, everybody got a trophy, right? So this doesn't really it's a nice thing to do. It doesn't really get to the point of as quickly as helping people with your feedback. So we're going to talk about some other ways you can give feedback. All right, so this is like a positivity sandwich, but it's more relevant. You can relate what has been done well in one part of the video and how it could be applied to another part of the video that needs some work. For example, you could say something like, the audio at the beginning of the video is clear and mixed well. That's a compliment. That's positive. And then that should be applied throughout the video. So that is implying that the audio in the rest of the video maybe isn't clear and maybe isn't mixed well. But you've given an example of where it is. You've given positive feedback, and then you added that, not really negative feedback, but advice on how something could be fixed or made better. Another way you can do this, give feedback, is to use questions instead of giving statements about what could use work. For example, you might say something like, we don't know where the scene is taking place because the establishing shot doesn't show the location well. Instead, you could say, could you find a piece of stock video that would be a more effective establishing shot? You probably would say these both together, but the question makes it more pointed about what could be done to fix it. Another way you could do this is to provide examples of what you're saying. So you might want to point out in a video that has a fight scene in it, for example, that is being shot somewhere that really doesn't fit with the scene, but maybe it's the only place you could fit it, you could shoot it. You could say something, well, hey, there's a scene in the Jack Ryan series on Amazon where the editing of a fight was done without showing a lot of the set. And it's in the 3rd episode of season 1. Something like that, where you are providing a real world example of an idea that you think might help a person's video. I just went through some general feedback and critiquing techniques. Now let's talk about, when you're looking at videos, what you should be critiquing. When you start to do a critique, it's always good to watch the entire video once, all the way through, without stopping, without writing anything down. Just watch it. Then you should watch it a second time, and this time you should be writing down notes. You can stop it in different places. This is where you're really looking for specific things that could be better than the way they are. It's not a goal to find error in everything. If it's a great video, it's a great video, but there are some things you need to look for. So first of all, the quality of the video is very important. So you want to make sure the resolution is good. You know, is it grainy? Does it look like some of the footage doesn't fill the screen? So it would be a different resolution. Is it like 1080p or higher, or whatever it is that the requirements are for that video? How's the lighting? Is it light enough, or is it appropriate? Is it supposed to be kind of a dark, or is it supposed to be light? Is it supposed to be during the day but it's too dark, or vice versa? Is the coloring appropriate, and is it consistent, right? So if you have a bunch of outdoor shots, are they all consistent? That's what you want to look at for the quality of video. And there's more, but those are the big ones. You also want to look at or listen to the quality of the music, and that's the voices, any background noise, music, special effects. If there are voices and a music bed underneath the voices, can you hear the voices, right? And when you watch and listen to videos, it's always good to do that without headphones on. Let it come out your speakers on your computer, or if you can, play it on your television, because it will sound different in headphones. Voices come through more clearly on headphones than they do when they're coming through regular speakers. So you really need to be careful about that, and make sure that your music bed is not too loud. And then just make sure everything's clear. It's all, a good audio level. It's all mixed properly. The pacing is a big thing, right? Is it moving too fast? Like, are the cuts so fast you can't tell what they are? Or is there like everything's pretty consistent and then there's like a little short one? Maybe it moves too slowly. Maybe the shots are held too long on screen. Those kind of things about, does it feel like it's dragging? Does it feel like it's rushing through? Some scenes might be cut really fast. They might be action scenes. Some scenes might cut really slow. They might be more sentimental or nostalgic scenes. If it makes sense, that's okay. But just how does it make you feel when you watch it? Does it feel like it's dragging? Do you feel like you're like, okay, we've seen this long enough? Or, shoot, what was that? I'm not sure what that shot was, or how it related to the other things that are going on. So think about those things. And of course, the story. There's a story in every video. We preach this all the time. Does it make sense? Does the story make sense? Is the message clear? Like if it's a commercial, is it clear as to what the commercial wants to say and wants you to do as a consumer? If it's a narrative story, does it flow? Does it make sense? Even if it's supposed to be a thriller or something like that, it should still in the end make sense. And then, are there appropriate visuals? Like, are the props appropriate? Are the costumes appropriate for the characters and the time it's set in? Are the sets themselves appropriate? Is it where the scenes are being shot? Are they the right place for those scenes? I put titles on here too, because a lot of people don't pay enough attention to the fonts and motion graphics of titles, whether they're just titles at the beginning and the end of a video, or if it's something that has lower thirds. Is there enough attention paid to that? Could there maybe be more appropriate creative typography, those kind of things as well? All right, so that's it. But one last quote for you from Ken Blanchard, who's a very famous business guru. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Really, and you heard it from Bill Gates before, feedback isn't there to hurt you, it's to help you. It makes you better. So I hope that you can use these tools not only for this class and this last assignment, but for the rest of your career.